Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. There are a lot of narratives that need to be considered going into this week on the Hot 100, most of which I predicted, and those that I didn't, I'm not sure I want to entertain. Of course, the biggest story is the Cardi B album bomb, and yes, we'll get into that in detail. But like last week, the Hot 100 would have been plenty busy without her, and for a change of pace, we're going to start off with our top 10. Whereas I predicted last week, Drake replaced himself, with Nice for What debuting at number 1. Now, I'll have a lot more to say about this song's actual quality later on the show, but there's no denying its power. With monstrous streaming, YouTube sales, and already significant radio momentum, it's way too early to tell whether it'll be as big as God's Plan, but it's probably going to get at least a few weeks at the very top, and that's to be respected. But let's not count out God's Plan just yet either. It's at number 2, sure, but its YouTube is actually more consistent than Nice for What, its streaming is still strong, and even though its radio is kinda wavering, it still has enough to be a present should Nice for What fall back. Now all this Hamstrings Meant to Be by BB Rexa featuring Florida Georgia Line at number 3. It's got the radio traction that will not die, sure, but streaming is weak and sales are slipping too, none of which is a good sign long term. Then we got Psycho by Post Malone featuring Ty Dolla $ign back at number 4, propped up by still rising airplay and consistent streaming, even if sales are starting to leak away. It might be what Post Malone needs to stay in part of the conversation, even as it seems like nobody really seems to care that beer bongs and Bentley's supposed to be dropping in about 10 days. Now what's also held steady was Look Alive by Blockboy JB featuring Drake at number 5, thanks entirely to streaming and surprisingly steady radio in the face of far weaker sales. Hell, kept it above the middle by Zedd, Maren Morris, and Gray at number 6, but given how its radio growth has slowed down and sales took a big hit, that might have happened anyway. Similar case for Perfect by Ed Sheeran, which is really just getting propped up by residual sales and radio down to number 7, is losing in other categories. Now we've got our second big top 10 debut, and one I think everybody was expecting, I Like It by Cardi B featuring Bad Bunny and J Balvin at number 8. Now again, I'll have a lot more to say about this later in the show, but with the huge sales and streaming it has, it's got the potential to be a tremendous hit provided it gets released to radio at the right time. So while it might not last in the top 10 initially, I predict that with the right marketing, it will definitely stick around. This song has the potential to be huge. Now the last two songs, they're not really worth a lot of conversation. Freaky Friday by Lil Dicky featuring Chris Brown is somehow still at number 9 thanks to YouTube That Will Not Die, and Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B fell down to number 10 as it bleeds hard across the board. Particularly in radio, I'm genuinely surprised it clung to the top 10 at all. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. And this is the sign of a true album bomb, because the losses were widespread and potentially disastrous for a lot of artists. Now, for the dropouts, this isn't that bad. Most they really aren't worth mentioning, as the biggest is Lemon by NERD and Rihanna, and the others are either songs that were sputtering out anyway, like Written in the Sand by Old Dominion, or Echeme la Copa by Luis Fonsi and Demi Lovato, or songs that are too small to really be worth caring about. They're not going to make the year-end list anyway. Now it's the losers where there was a much greater swath, in particular hitting the Weeknd's hits from last week hard, forcing Call Out My Name down to 20, Wasted Times to 63, and Try Me to 74, along with the other debut Medicine from Queen Naija down to 86. Then we had rising stars cut short pretty hard, like Broken Clocks by SZA stifled back to 97, and No Roots by Alice Merton down to 96. Concerning, as the radio doesn't look all that solvent, not a good sign. But then we get the tracks that are going to make the year-end list anyway, and I don't mind them exiting, like Him and I by G-Eazy and Halsey at 44, or Lights Down Low by Max featuring Nash at 45, or even Marry Me by Thomas Rhett down to 55. It's gonna make that year-end list. It had a good run. Hell, country as a whole had a pretty rough week though. Most People Are Good by Luke Bryan's down to 60, Tequila by Dan and Shay to 77, Broken Halos by Chris Stapleton to 82, 5 More Minutes by Scotty McCreery to 89, I Lived It by Blake Shelton to 95, and All on Me by Devin Dawson forced down hard to 93. And it was almost as bad for Latin music and reggaeton too. X by Nicky Jam and J Balvin to 61, Jura by Daddy Yankee to 70, and El Frisante by Ozuna and Romeo Santos to 73. 83. Now the rest of our losers, pretty scattered. Hard Away by Derez Deshawn to 84, When We by Tank back to 91, Red Roses by Lil Skies featuring Landon Cube to 94, and Top Off by DJ Khaled, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Future down hard to 90. All the more proof that apparently Jay-Z and Beyonce working with DJ Khaled is a recipe for no tangible results. And with all that, the only 2 gains we got this week and no returning entries makes this pretty short. Barche Cardi by Cardi B featuring 21 Savage of course rebounds to 32, and Japan by Famous Dex continues steadily up to 29, entirely driven off the streaming. Shame the song isn't really memorable or special for me to care about it much, but again, these are not where the story is this week. And hell, you can make the argument that the story isn't really in the opening slate of our new arrivals, starting off with number 100, Alone by Halsey featuring Big Sean and Stefflon Don.
I can just tell you this, baby, as soon as you meet me, you wish that you never did. You wish that you never did.
So honest question, why is Halsey continuing to release singles from Hopeless Fountain Kingdom? And if she's doing so, why is it this and not Strangers? Well, this time around she's got both Big Sean and Stefflon Don for support on the remix, and alright look, I think the opulence that came through in the horns and the backing keys, it could have actually worked better if you didn't anchor the low end of the hook in this flat, buzzy synth line and blocky percussion, leaning into the jazzy side, that could have connected. And hell, Big Sean, he's always had a taste of some of this brand of production going back to Dark Sky Paradise. And the back and forth with Halsey, while not particularly nuanced, that could have worked well. So I don't understand why Stefflon Don effectively mirrors Halsey's same brand of coldness on the third verse and is clearly not the person who was talking with Halsey on the first, which kind of pulls you out of the emotions and thematic arc of the song. I don't know, it's passable I guess, but as someone who has never really been all that impressed by what Halsey's released from this sophomore record, this isn't doing much to change my mind, so next. Number 92, Chun-Li by Nicki Minaj.
Fendi Prince on, I mean I've been storm, X-Men been formed. He keep on dialing Nicki like the Prince on. I've been on, bitch you been con. Bentley tints on, Fendi Prince on. Ayo I been north, Laura been Croft. Place say Chun-Li, drop the bins off.
Alright look, I'm not saying there's any beef going on between Cardi B and Nicki Minaj. Odds are there probably isn't. This is just an attempt to spark up some cheap publicity and drama when there really isn't any reason for it. But it does seem pretty damn suspicious that Nicki Minaj just so happened to choose to release 2 singles while Invasion of Privacy was really blowing up. But fine, nothing wrong with a little competition. This could stack up well, and you know, it'd be easier to walk away from those rumors, Nicki, if you couldn't clearly tell this was very clearly directed at Cardi B, referencing her song, how she wanted to be friends, and how quickly she blew up in the mainstream. And yet I wish Nicki Minaj had dropped something a little bit more impressive here, because this is just really okay. Sparse keys, squonking horns, and a rumbling beat that's more reminiscent of boom bap than trap, but really not all that impressive regardless. And a hook and verses full of video game references and brand name bragging with a lot of repeated rhymes. I hate to say it, but if this is Nicki Minaj asserting her dominance among women in rap, I'm not buying it. At all. Number 85, Get Along by Kenny Chesney.
Long way to go, scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give love the upper hand. Paint a wall, learn to dance. Call your mom, buy a boat, drink a beer, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all?
Another year, another Kenny Chesney record and single pushed to radio that will be passable at best. And look, if you remember how scathing I was about Cosmic Hallelujah back in 2016, you know that I was not looking forward to this at all. But the truth is, this is just pretty harmless, more organic in its choice of banjo and acoustic guitar playing off a pretty stable groove, pretty likable, loose multi-tracking around the hook that I dug there, and the content, yeah, it's doofy, it's formulaic in its list of things to do to get along, but I can't deny it's got its heart in the right place, and the production doesn't really do anything to compromise Kenny Chesney's natural charisma that he's always had. Nothing all that memorable, sure, but considering how badly produced and colorless Kenny Chesney's last album, Cosmic Hallelujah, really was, this is a step in the right direction, so yeah. it's alright, I'll take it. Number 83, Barbie Tingz by Nicki Minaj.
The man get booked like me. When I run up in the lab and cook like me, but ain't near you hoes pussy good like me. Pussy so good his ex wanna still fight me. Face so pretty, bitches wish they could slice me. She just mad cause he never bought a ice like me. I cut all my niggas off, but they would still wife me.
So now we've got our second Nicki Minaj single, the one that seems to be getting the larger promotional rollout, and I guess I see why, but man alive, if Nicki Minaj wants to get me on her side, I'm just not all that impressed by this. The nasal synth drones, the deeper bass and knocking beat could work if any of it contained any real tune or melody, and as for as much as Nicki wants to assert her dominance, I have no idea why she's bothering to take more shots at Remy Ma on her first verse when the beef has long been dead, and implying so many female rappers are just copying her style to get her place in the industry. And while we'll get into Cardi B on a few songs, can we call out that Lil Wayne's perfectly designed crew has really underperformed outside of Drake and Nicki? Hell, when was the last time Lil Wayne was notching success on his own here? And for as much as Nicki Minaj wants to assert herself as dominant in the mainstream, her rhymes on both the second and third verse are incredibly lazy, rhyming bitch with itself over a dozen times and describing everybody copying her as just her Barbies that she's toying with. And yet, just like with Chun-Li, the more I hear it, the less I'm convinced that Nicki's throne is quite as secure as she thinks. Next up, number 65, ASAP Forever by ASAP Rocky featuring Moby.
Pull up on your set, leave it stain. Gang, gang. I tell them come fuck with the game. I tell them don't fuck with the game. It's time to fuck up the whole game.
So while ASAP Rocky did his thing on No Limit, and while I really had a lot of issues with this 2015 album, I also won't deny he's a more creative MC in his lane, and when he announced this team-up single with Moby of all people, I had some high hopes, especially considering Moby knows his way around a catchy-as-hell melody. Now granted, the featuring credit for Moby here is how gratuitously they sample Porcelain, but the glittering pianos and elegant strings are a natural fit for ASAP Rocky's style and taste, and my god, I wish he had actually more to say against it instead of flexing triplet flows, a single verse showing angst in the most by-the-numbers way possible, and the most repetition of the word gang since Migos put out Gang Gang on Culture 2 earlier this year. Now granted, it's a better song thanks to the production and a little bit more diversity in the content. It's not bad, I'd say pretty good, but man, I was hoping this would be a lot better, or at least more interesting. Next up, number 62, One Kiss by Calvin Harris featuring Dua Lipa.
I look like all you need. One kiss is all it takes. Falling in love with me. Possibilities. I look like all you need.
So let's get this out of the way. No, I'm not especially happy Calvin Harris is pivoting away from the retro disco stylings of his last album in favor of more synth-driven electronics, but I at least had the hope he would pick up an interesting sound or style from that diversion, and Dua Lipa is a really promising pop presence. And here's the thing, this is more interesting than the garish EDM he pushed in the early 2010s. It's more reminiscent of house music with a tight rubbery synth in the beat, accented with elongated piano and vocal textures contorting around the main groove. It does have a certain sleek presence to it, something that Dua Lipa can certainly handle if the content's pretty bare bones, but I can't help but feel like this is a much less interesting lane for Calvin Harris. It's not as groove-driven, it's not as fun, just as retro in its style of electronic music, but not really distinctive enough to vary from older and better house music. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but it's not really all that special or memorable either. Next up, number 59, Diamond Teeth Samurai by YoungBoy, Never Broke Again.
Ain't no acting when I'm on a mission. Trying to assassinate my character, ain't say I did. Nigga, you got that yayo. What's up, nigga? Nigga, you let them K's go. What's up, nigga? Oh, you ducking them laws. You better rest from them, nigga. Oh, you playing with that raw. Well, look your friends up, nigga.
So I have no idea why anybody's continuing to give this guy any sort of attention. Yeah, the piano-driven production is better with the sharper synth accents and the trap snares, and it's probably one of his better hooks. But am I the only one who finds his flow on his verses really uneven and clunky, or how his content is really all about robbing people, killing people, and moving drugs just like all of his songs are? I will say there does seem to be a little more focus and menace on this song, and he's not relying on the most nasal parts of his voice, so this isn't quite as annoying. But still, I'm not really as gripped as I want to be, and the fact that this will probably turn out to be another near hit from him is frustrating, because really, he's showing some potential, but it's just not that interesting. Should be better. Number 58, Moneybag by Cardi B.
With them pretty ass twins, you look like Beyonce. Looking like money back, money back, money back, money back, money back, money back, yeah.
I've already reviewed Cardi B's debut at length, I'm gonna try to keep these recaps pretty brief, and we're starting off with a song that a lot of people seem to find really obnoxious, particularly in the production. And initially, I was very much in that camp with the ragged synth line and the clunky bass. Hell, it would be very easy to call this a blatant attempt to follow in the wake of Bodak Yellow, and yet, man alive, this grew on me. The hook is incredibly catchy, the flow switches are well handled, the rhymes all connect, and even if it is just flexing, it falls into the 2 Chainz territory, being so ridiculously over the top that it becomes enjoyable again for me. Yeah, it's obnoxious, but it's the right kind of obnoxious, playing into sheer bewilderment how she blew up so fast and landing some punchlines against the jealous haters while she does it. And frankly, if you're gonna make the comparison to Nicki Minaj, I take Moneybag any damn day of the week. Ton of fun, really like this song, check it out. Next up, number 57, She Bad by Cardi B featuring YG.
That ass, she bad, 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 Gucci bag, Gucci bag, Gucci bag, Fendi bag, Prada bag, Louis bag, Gucci bag, Gucci bag, Birkin bag, she in a bag, she drip, she swag, never mad, she glad, Louis bag, she in a bag.
Okay, look, I get that songs like this are just intended for the strip club with the incredibly repetitive and monotonous hook from YG totally phoning it in, but are we expected to just ignore that YG is not trying here at all? This is a very serious regression to a much more basic style from him, and when you pair it with a very minimalist muted synth and trap hi-hat, it would be very easy to dismiss the song until Cardi B sets out to be as nakedly provocative as possible to seduce the priest, eat the guy's balls, and then try to set up a threesome with Rihanna and Chrissy Teigen, which even when interspersed amidst all the brand name porn, it's at least memorable in its punchlines. That being said, it's definitely a weaker cut from the album, only really okay at best. Number 50, Through Your Phone by Cardi B.
I went through your phone last night. Saw some things I didn't like. I went through your phone last night. It's killing me, killing me, killing me.
Again, another case where Cardi B saves a song that should be a lot worse than it is. I tend to really hate songs about going through a partner's phone, but Cardi B cranks up the naked melodrama into outright murderous territory that shows some dangerous creativity in its kills. It's just a shame that the production and the hook can't really match her at all with that clunky lo-fi snap, the very muted vocal sample for a melody bleeding into a pretty cheap trap beat, and Ali Tempazzi doing her best Melanie Martinez impression on the hook, but for a very similar brand of juxtaposition and one I don't entirely like. But considering the production never really amps up at all to match Cardi B's intensity, it just kind of falls flat for me. It's not really bad, but not really good either. Number 43, Bickenhead by Cardi B.
And I'm heartless. There's a vision in my vision. That bitch is a target. Lawyer is a Jew. He gon' chew up all the charges. No matter if you fuck with me, I get money regardless. That guap guap, get some chicken. Guap guap, get some bread. Guap guap, get some chicken. Guap guap, get some bread. Bitch, press. You can flex. Get some money, ho. Tell me why you stressed.
Okay, I dig the Flip Project Pat sample, and the hook is catchy as sin for its flexing. And I'll admit that Cardi B might just be goofy enough to pull off the nursery rhyme reference, and if she wants a guy to invest everywhere she's popping the pussy to get on the third verse to get, that's intriguing. Then that's where I'd normally add qualifiers, but the only one that really comes to play is how Cupcake might be doing this sound a little better. But yet for what Cardi B is trying to do in the mainstream, I don't mind it. It's a solid banger. I can get behind it. Next up, number 39, Best Life by Cardi B featuring Chance the Rapper.
Best life. Made a couple M's with my best friends. Turned all my L's into lessons. You see the whip pulling up, it's like skirt. Dreams pulling up, I'm like skirt. I'm living my best life. It's my birthday, at least that's what I'm dressed like.
So now we get the other legitimately great song on Invasion of Privacy, where Chance brings his slightly off-kilter energy to the hook and a pretty terrific verse, but that's not to say Cardi B doesn't hold her own here, even if I can't say I'm all that impressed by her complaining about the Twitter drama. Still, for an upbeat song about rising above haters and flexing, Cardi B and Chance the Rapper both have that same reckless enthusiasm that's so infectious, which makes me wish the production gave them more to work with. Very minimal backing melody or percussion, and I can't help but feel like a little bit more of a lush instrumental palette could have really hit so much better. This could have been a real hit, but still, a lot of the flows pretty great. Definitely recommended. Number 38, Get Up 10 by Cardi B.
Used to dance in a club right across from my school. I said dance, nah, fuck, don't get it confused. Had to set the record straight cause bitches love to assume. Mama couldn't give it to me, had to get it in suits. Lord only knows how I got it in shoes. I was covered in dollars, now I'm dripping in jewels. A bitch play with my money, might as well spit in my food.
So we've got the album opener, where Cardi B gets on her bombastic Meek Mill-esque delivery against gleaming pianos, sirens and air horns, and sweeping synthesizers as she describes her come up from poverty as the trap beat kicks in, with the sort of detail that honestly made me wish Cardi B would talk a little bit more about her past, especially as she sprays insults and punchlines against all the bitches trying to drag her down. And yeah, she's certainly more memorable in that lane, and I like the build-up on the song, but if Cardi B were to show more of herself with the same vivid detail and imagination, describe more of her past stories, I don't think I'd complain, because otherwise it's solid, I like it, but we could see more. Number 28, Ring by Cardi B featuring Kehlani.
You don't make it ring, 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 ring. I can't keep this on the low. I want you to make it ring, 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 ring.
Alright, look, I get that Cardi B was obliged to make a song like this, but honestly, it does not work remotely for her at all. She's too forceful of a presence to play meek and insecure in this lane, especially when she's gonna abandon it anyway halfway through her verse, and the calling conversation feels kinda pointless when the guy's gonna drunk dial her anyways. Now granted, the much bigger problem is the utterly flat trap production and a really grating hook from Kehlani, especially when she gets her own verse to end out the song, and it ends any sort of momentum and not flattering to anybody. So yeah, not a good song, not even Cardi B can really save it. I said it was the worst track on Invasion of Privacy, and yeah, I stand by that. Next, number 23, I Do by Cardi B featuring SZA.
Dress me down in a rash and a roaring jacket. Dapper, I look fine and my checks define. No wonder why I do whatever I like. I do what I like. I do. What I like. I do.
So I'm pretty back and forth about this song, mostly because the atonal synths and dreary vibe in the production is not normally what I would prefer to hear SZA opposite, and yet she kinda held her own with that hook. She sounds pretty good. Now Cardi B, again, I think her flows are a little rough around the edges on the first verse, but again, her punchlines are legitimately solid and asserting how those 15 minutes are long as hell amidst a convincingly braggadocious vibe. And I like how on her second verse she doesn't pretend to be ladylike and asserting her vivacious presence against some of her male counterparts, for which SZA's a great fit in that sort of conceptual lane, and it's a ballsy sort of move. I do think it's a weird album closer, but as a song on its own, yeah, I like it. Good track. Next up, number 21, Drip by Cardi B featuring Migos.
Came through dripping, diamonds on my wrist, they dripping. Ice. Came through dripping, came through dripping, came through dripping, diamonds on my wrist, they dripping.
Oh man, I wish the production on this song was better, or at least there was more to that grainy synth line. Granted, you could credibly make the argument this is more of a Migos song than Cardi B's. Her verse is pretty solid, and she switches through a fair number of different triplet flows. I'd probably say I like her verse more than Offset's or Quavo's, and Offset's verse is not bad. But then Takeoff shows up with a verse that's both pretty tightly written and genuinely funny. It's talking about giving people wet willies, for God's sakes. And when you couple it with production that would not be out of place on Culture 2, again, it's a better Migos song, better than the majority of Culture 2, but it still feels like one regardless. But even then, it's good. Check it out. Next up, number 8, I Like It by Cardi B featuring Bad Bunny and J Balvin.
I need the dollars to change, beat it up like pinata. Turn the job, close the curtains. Bad bitch make you nervous.
So as I said earlier, I expect this to be pretty huge when the radio finally gets on board, and man, I wish I liked it a fair bit more. Now don't get me wrong, the Pete Rodriguez sample adds real color to the blocky beat thanks to the horns and more pronounced Latin flair, and in comparison with so much more forgettable reggaeton, this is a huge step up, but then we get verses from Bad Bunny and J Balvin who can certainly flow, but I've already heard Cardi B flow in Spanish before with Ozuna, and frankly, she should have handled this herself. Now don't get me wrong, as a crossover song, it's good. I get why she got those guest verses, and I can see myself liking this down the road, but what I see myself liking a lot more is number 1, Nice for What by Drake.
Louisiana shit. Murder on the beat. So for y'all to cut up to, you know? Yeah. Everybody get your motherfucking...
Hey look, Drake made a song I really like. Man alive, it's been a long time since I've been able to say that. But you know what? It got there because Drake zeroed in on a formula that's great and it's worked for him before. A really good sample from a female singer, this time from Lauryn Hill, a beat that actually has some bounce to it, and production that doesn't feel the need to wash itself out in reverb or really dour tones. He did it on Weston Road Flows back on Views, he's doing it here too, and this is even better. And yes, it's borrowing heavily from the New Orleans bounce sound, and I won't deny that Drake writing a song about girls that don't need to be nice to guys, not worth their time, seems like the sort of advice that can really backfire on him in a hurry. And again, the fact that he's the one saying it and being elevated saying that message is questionable in its own right. But I won't deny that I really like the song regardless. The hook is solid as hell, the sample, while basic in its usage, is effective, and Drake not writing about himself is a huge step in the right direction off of Views and More Life. And that all means making the best pick of this week is pretty tricky. Now the worst is easy, I'm giving that to Ring by Cardi B with Kehlani, but I can't in good conscience give it a dishonorable mention. Instead, 2 honorable mentions this week, with Best Life by Cardi B featuring Chance the Rapper, tying with Nice for What by Drake, and the best is going to Moneybag by Cardi B. It's insanely catchy, genuinely fun, I don't care if it's obnoxious, it works for me. I don't expect it to be a hit, but I would love to see it get that chance. Next week, the fallout of all this, so stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.